So I find this really interesting. I will try and not make it long-winded, and don't take my words for granted because I know nothing about this subject. But we're in Ust-Kamenogorsk, which is Oskemen. Oskemen is the German name because here in Kazakhstan and East Kazakhstan, there used to be 1.5 million Germans sizably in this region, where there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of mining, lots of uranium, and other valuable commodities. But this church is really, I think, interesting because this is typically Lutheran. This is like the design that you'll see anywhere in Sweden or Finland, Scandinavia. It's very typically Lutheran, this sort of spire with the sort of octagonal or hexagonal spire. And then, of course, you have the dome, which also transitions into the Islamic mosque in terms of its design, which is, of course, Russian Orthodox. But interestingly, I've seen wooden versions of the atypical Lutheran church without the typical Orthodox dome in places like Karkarali, which is near Karaganda in Kazakhstan, converted actually into mosques. So it's really, really interesting. And then over here, we have, this is the monastery over here. Which is really interesting. This is more like typically, I guess, Russian Orthodox, and the design is a little bit classical, you could say, probably like 19th century. But this one's really interesting. I quite like the sort of hybrid design of the Lutheran and the Russian Orthodox. It's fascinating. Also, there's little things that I haven't noticed here, like on the top, if I zoom in a little bit, I'm not quite sure what the base of that cross is. There's so many different unique ways of designing the cross. The typical Russian Orthodox crosses, of course, got the angled, get my finger in this shot, the angled point there. But yeah, I just had a little bit more time before the sun went down, so I figured I would have a little look. And then we've got, I guess, part of the old monastery there. But yeah, it's really nice. I also need to do a little bit more research on the sort of the reason why some churches are whitewashed, because I know like Protestantism and Lutheranism are quite similar. I think Lutheran sort of the Lutheran branch is sort of just a Scandinavian, I think, offshoot of British Protestantism, and I'm just interested to know why the walls are white on some churches, and then you go to places like I've just been in Semay, and you'll have very colourful sort of shades like blue or even yellow sometimes, which I quite like. But yeah, interesting stuff. I don't know the history. If there's a little bit more down here, maybe it's an information plaque. But yeah, I really like these churches. I quite like the periods and the mix. It's sort of, that sort of mix, the Eurasian mix, the sort of Islamic world meeting the Christian world, Asia and Europe combined into one sort of architectural product. And actually here there's almost like a triple transition, because you have this very typical Russian Orthodox spire here, almost like a nipple. And then this is more like a middle ground between that and the more dome-like architecture which you see here, which is much more Middle Eastern actually. And then of course you have the sort of classical design here, the atypical atypical sort of right-angled rectangular spire which you find on Lutheran churches. I don't know what I'm talking about now, but I just find it really interesting. This is why I probably should do a little bit more research on it. But yeah, it's really nice. It's just in the centre of sort of the city here, and this is obviously new. I wonder what was here before. But, yeah, really cool stuff. And this is my last day in Ust-Kamenogorsk, or Oskemen. And then tomorrow we will go to Rida, which should be good. And actually there they have the sort of more traditional Russian Orthodox, German Lutheran hybrid churches that you find in and around this part of Kazakhstan, where it's much more colourful and also built in wood rather than brick.